How's it going, everyone? Welcome to our weekly trading review for March 3rd. This week, I took 15 trades. I had 2 swing longs and 13 day trades. They were mostly focused on the long side, pretty much all focused on the long side, 12 longs, 1 short. And as we'll get to in the market analysis, I think it wasn't as egregious as an error as last week. There was some money to be made on both sides this week. So let's get into what the market did this week. We started up on Monday, opened up near the 50 SMA, and we had a big long red candle. And now we're seeing had some fall through selling from the 50 all the way down to the 200, actually poked below it. And then we had a bit of an end of day rally, closing near its high over here. So pretty decent move. Pretty decent move from the market, starting at 596, closing at 557. So down 20 bucks on that. Let's zoom into that M30 chart just to get a sense of what that price action has been like. And you can see that we had this pretty big move down after this pop up here last Friday. And then since then, market was kind of in this range a little bit here. Test the 200, try to bounce off, test it again, try to bounce off, another test, poke through, right? Bounced off, couldn't quite get through. So we're at the 200 SMA, but we couldn't get that launch off point because there's so much offering that's going on here by institutions. And we closed the week here kind of on a bounce that started decent. It looked like it could have potential, and then it ended up being pretty wimpy. So I think there was a lot of two-sided price action this week. It signals two things. One, I think we're closer to the end of this downtrend than the beginning. You can see how organized and strong the move was earlier in the trend. We got a bounce, still wasn't that strong. Made a new low. We got a taller bounce, a little bit stronger. That actually fueled us to a nice new low of the day here, and then compressed for a while, chopped around. And some buyers are trying to buy the dip here. Sellers are looking at this point to offload shares. We broke through a ton of different levels on the D1 D1 chart. Obviously the SMAs were through that election gap. We closed that gap. We had a break back and a retest here. 200 SMA into play. We had some AV WAPs that came up over here, but market just kind of chewed through all of them. And I think that's the main takeaway where, look, if you have a very strong crackdown on heavy volume and institutions are unloading shares aggressively, yeah, that means that your TA is kind of going out the window here. Some levels get retested. We get a break. We get a retest, right? But for the most part, pretty strong bearish action. And it's lasted a while. It's lasted since the 21st. It's been about 2 weeks now in that trend. So let's start with the 2 swing longs that I did. The first one I took on the 4th over here, and that was GRRR. So took it right here. Here's the D1 setup on this stock, and this is what I saw when I entered the trade. So market down, testing level, stock up, breaking above, breaking kind of through that prior day high. And nice little cup and handle action going on over here. Also, this is kind of in a tech sector, which has been kind of beaten down. So this has some true relative strength versus some stuff in like staples where it's more divergent action. Also a bit of a Momo here. You can see that this chart starts at $8. So stock has moved up quite a bit since November. And there's a nice entry point right over here to get in on that stock on the 5th at $15. Anyways, so this is the setup on GRR. I believe a couple people in the one option chat also took this, so they put it on my radar. I like this as a long. If we look at what was going on the intraday chart on the 4th, so we have this nice tall little bounce here, and I knew that, all right, look, we're probably going to retest the 200 SMA, maybe, right? I'm not opposed to that, but if we double bottom and find support, then we have and kind of break above this high, then this stock should have some nice runway through it. Let's look at this, maybe this M15 chart here on GRRR. Come on. All right, so you can see that early in the day, SPY is dropping, testing that level, kind of compressing here. This stock, after gaps up, pulls back here. Super nice run on heavy volume to break above this high of the day. And then it spends the rest of the day just kind of compressing, not doing a whole lot, which is fine, and is what I like. You can see in these compressions that we're getting higher and higher lows here. Higher low, higher low, higher low. Not spending a lot of time. I know that's the M15 8 EMA, but even if I were to go to the M5 8 EMA, you'll see that it did not spend a ton of time really below that level. It's kind of chopping around that level, but it held pretty well. So I took this stock at right over here at 319 or 320 time, not in terms of price. In terms of price, I took the March 21st 4045 CDS for $1.71. And my rationale is like, look, I want my downside risk contained. I want to give myself some time, and I want to give myself the market chance for this to bounce, retest some support, and then go up higher. And if I don't get that pattern, then I have to consider exiting the trade. So that's what I saw in GRRR. The next day, let's look. I guess we'll zoom into the M5 chart now. Now that I'm on this M5 level, so we get this end of day sell off, which is like, all right, look, I'm not too bothered about this. I expected this. We're getting a test here. This is a wimpy test. We're forming a higher low. Okay, I like this. So let's see if we can get a nice little rally off here. If we can actually get above this high of the day. And we closed the day kind of right below that high, which I didn't love. I didn't hate. I didn't love it. I wanted it to really break through here. And you see we have yet to actually break above a prior kind of pivot high on SPY. If you look at the D1 chart on SPY, there's been no close above a prior day high, which means that especially if you're learning out, you should not be ready to bite on certain longs. Now, on March 5th, right, we had some follow through in GRR, and it still looked pretty good here, right? It pulled back to VWAP, had a nice strong move. Still like the stock. It fell just short of my profit target, but I was looking to take it maybe to 45 or something like that. And market's testing support, so it's looking good. So as long as the market continues to test support, then we are in good shape. And then, whoops, I see this kind of long red candle going on over here at 11:15, and I thought, oh, okay, I don't quite like that because this was a prior D1 level that the stock had fallen through. And really kind of unable to, it had some follow through after the selling, but this long red candle from this high, I said, you know what? I don't want to kind of take in this trade here. I'm going to get out. So I decided to get out at 11:20 on this candle, and here's SPY at 11:20. So looking back at this trade, I think the first improvement was one, see if I can wait for this to kind of fade out and then take gains closer to the high of the day over here. And the market ended up rallying, and this stock also ended up rallying. So that was my opportunity to get out. You can see it ended up selling off fairly hard in the rest of the day. But here's my opportunity to get out at 3. So I think the mistake I made here was just in my entry. It was a little too skittish. It did break VWAP, and I didn't want it to break VWAP, and I didn't really want it to let it go against me. But this was a wimpy move lower, and yeah, I mean, I felt it should be more likely for me to hold this than to get out. So I took a 21-cent loss on this, which is pretty minor. It's like, I don't know, 15% or something. So very tiny loss on this. I'm not super bummed, but in terms of the game planning, should have been a little bit better about either taking it into strength or after waiting for this dip, right, getting in, getting out on the next little go on this guy, because it's a strong stock. It's not going to dip, not going to get out after the first dip. You have a chance to exit at this next relative high. So that was GRRR. Next one I took was ASTS, and I took this trade on the 5th. Here was the setup on the 5th on ASTS. Let's look at the SPY D1. And here is the SPY D1 on the 5th. So what I liked was, all right, look, we got a little double bottom higher low. We're holding the 200 SMA. This is a natural place for us to find some support. This stock had a massive parabolic move early last year in the first half of the year. Spent about, looks like 6 months pulling back. Tested the 200 SMA, found some support there. Had a nice, strong launch off of that support. Pulled back over here, and it was starting to break through a whole ton of trend lines. So these high minus trend lines. This high plus I'm not as worried about, to be honest. There's also a couple of horizontal levels over here that I was watching that it was kind of breaking through. So breaking through a lot of levels, had some room to about $39. And this stock was, it's kind of doing its own thing. And it's been very strong during this market decline. So I liked it. I took the March 21st call debit spread, 34.39 for $1.64. And my thinking was, look, I want some time on this. And look, if the market has another leg lower, I can maybe take some heat. But maybe willing to let this go a little bit. But overall, want to see the market kind of find some support here and start to get a nice another little leg higher. So next day, SPY has a little poke lower, and this stock has a poke higher. And you can see it doesn't quite get to this level around 30, just about 35. There's a little bit of resistance right over here at about 36.50. So I was aware of that, but I wasn't super worried if I had the market tailwind in my favor. But didn't quite get it. So now let's look at the M5 chart for ASTS. So here is it on the 6th. So on the 6th, I held it up over, so came up through here, poked above, came back down, right, tested its AV wrap. All right, look, I'm not super worried. Looks like it's pretty fine here. On the 7th, we got a poke here. We got a double bottom, shooting up pretty strong, pretty nice and strong. And I like this move, but if I look at what happened on the 7th here on the market, we actually got a poke below that 200 SMA, and we didn't get a strong close into the open, or into the strong move into the close. So here I'm on ASTS, and I'm like, look, I can scratch out of this trade right now if I wanted to. And if the market had stack greens and got above 580, maybe even try to fill in some of this gap here at 583, I would have held on to the stock. But because it didn't, I was like, look, market's not doing what I'm expecting it to do. I don't want to be bag holding the short, right, and have the next leg drop ahead of me. So I'm going to scratch this trade and ended up taking a $9 loss on this guy, which is 5% loss. Was just marking that in my log here. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I held it through. Took it here, pulled back, double bottom, came up over here. You know what? Not crazy about this. Not crazy about the market. I'm going to get out of the trade. So both my swing longs here, tiny losses or scratches, depending on however you want to classify them. I think I didn't manage them too poorly, although I think ASTS I managed well. I think GRR, I could have managed it a little bit better for at least maybe take a tiny win on that guy. Okay, so let's go now to the day trading. And let's start here all the way from Monday. Monday. All right. Good old Monday. So, gap up and reject off that 50 SMA as well as 600, where we get fairly close to 600 here. There's also, this chart is kind of a mess in the bottom, but the main thing you want to focus on is just this yellow line over here. This yellow line is the election AVWAP. So we broke through here, came back and retested it. So was also on my radar. This red line is the AVWAP from the all-time high. So they've kind of intersected at that point. And these green lines are AVWAPs from prior lows. But the main thing is that, look, all right, came back and I retested an AVWAP, and then we got slammed down over here. So bearish day, and we spend most of the day just kind of like, test, double bottom, kind of get a little higher over here. Just kind of some bearish action here, but we're also, by the way, I think higher than the 100 SMA at this level. Just want to make sure I'm looking at the right 100 SMA. Yep, we have the 100 SMA at 593. So, yeah, that was kind of just right around here. You chop through here. We're trying to break through that. Test, test, test. Couldn't get anything going. And then we had a late day sell-off. And closing, pretty much nearest low. We had one leg here, weak bounce, and then another leg lower over here. So, what did I do? Well, on 3-3, I took MDT. And MDT was probably one of the strongest stocks you could find that day. Here was the setup on this guy. Broken through compression. And I'll just use this bottom chart here for SPY. And I'm going to clear this high drawing so it's not a mess here. So that bottom chart is SPY. So you can see that, all right, look. Broke through this horizontal level of resistance. Strong stock. This is medical technologies. Healthcare sector has been seeing some inflows with some risk off. So really nice, strong price action on this guy. Let's look at this M5 chart. All right. So here's the M5 chart. First, we got a very strong move on MDT, and then it kind of flat lines here for a little bit, which is fine because this compression allows us to evaluate any relative strength, and it allows us to see whether this move is going to hold. So whole day, right, is holding, forming this nice little L pattern, which I like to trade, where strong stock shoots up higher and has this L where it just holds pretty much all the gain of the prior move. Compress, 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 compress. Buyers offload all of that profit taking. Now we start to break through it over here at 12.15. But if we look at the market at 12.15, oh, okay, look, it's right at that 100-day SMA, kind of at VWAP over here. So we want to see if that actually kind of moves up or not. And also, I'm not quite sure if this move is legit because the market has been moving higher. So, it's kind of the relative strength here is a little bit flat. Now the stock is relative strength, but this move right here, right now, is that strong, right? The market started to move up here at 11.45. This stock also moved up at 11.45. So this move has kind of been following the market over here. Now, the market starts to dip a little bit at 12.30. And then it starts to dip over here at 12.45. And now what does this stock do at 12.45? Holds, and it starts to push up over here. So I get long. I take 150 shares long at 94.71. And max risk is kind of a 93.71. So just a clean breakthrough VWAP somewhere here. That's when I take my max loss. It's also under this pivot low. So I can take a little bit of heat over here. And we got a fresh buy signal. So I like what I see here. I'm like, all right, look, we're shopping around here. I think we have a chance for at least the market to push up, MDT to have some follow through. Instead, we got some red candles to a new low of the day. And then what did MDT do? MDT did nothing. It held. But I have seen this movie before. Where have I seen this movie? Oh, how about literally 2 days ago? Literally 2 days ago, right? Gap down. Oh, gap up. Smack down. Test, 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 test. Higher, low. Come over here. Oh, look, we got some bullish hammers. Oh, look, it looks so good right now. Boom. So, and I remember I lost some money on SPY last week on this, and I ended up taking a tiny loss in RTX. So, although I took that loss, I did not take that loss in vain because it allowed me to see, hey, look, this is literally the same exact pattern, and I'm not going to fall for this one. You can fool me once, but don't fool me twice. So I got out. I think I got out at 106. So pretty much right at the close of this candle, because that's not what I wanted to see. And this volume was picking up. This price action was looking quite organized. So I took the scratch right here at 94.60. So an 11-cent loss, which was not a huge position. The fact that I was willing to risk about $1. So took a tiny loss on that or scratch. Got out of danger, and that's that on that stock. So I think it was stock-wise, it was a good pick. It was a good entry. Market-wise, I think I didn't have a clear enough market bias on this one, to be honest, and that's something I've been struggling this week and just not really been executing well on the market front, is syncing my entries with the market. So I'm actually going to be making a separate video about how to figure out what's going wrong. But overall, if you look at this trend, right, you still see the lower highs. There's no reason to get long, and the stock has not been able to get off the deck. We know that sellers are present, and we're near a major moving average. My mind is locked into, we're going to get a bounce. We're going to get a bounce. We're going to get a bounce. We're going to get a bounce, right? And there's still so much pressure for this to unload. That's kind of the takeaway here. And when we get this thing and we just can't get off the deck when the market and the price action has been super bearish, sellers are going to come through the door, buyers are going to throw in the towel, and you got a really nice short over here. So I really should have been focusing much more on the short side earlier, where there's just far more opportunity in this trend. All right, so that was MDT. Next one over here was Lilly. All right, so where was good old, here was Lilly. All right, so Lilly on the D1. I should have started with the D1 first. I always make the mistake. So here is Lilly on March 3rd. Looking pretty nice. Here's SPY on March 3rd. You can see, look, healthcare up, SPY down, D1. Fairly simple. We're through some downward sloping trend lines. This was not a trend line when I was there. This formed after the close of this candle. But I liked it, had plenty of room to the all-time high, and had a decent trend, although it is choppy, right? You can see that closes over here, gap down. So there's overlap and retracement of the candles, and you're better off buying a move in the gap down and trading it to the long side here. There's not a stock you got to chase. So Lilly seems to be slightly down after that. Nothing crazy, just down $100. No big deal. So strong to stay. And again, look, right? Market flat, Lilly up. And I know it's a choppy stock, so I was waiting for some sort of pullback and waiting to kind of buy the dip over here. So kind of dips. It's starting to rally over here around this right, 130 all the way to 230. If we look at the market here from 130 to 230, yeah, look, we're rallying a little bit. And also liked how on this leg lower from 1240 to 135, where is this? 12. Here's 1240 to 135. You can see that it got pulled down a little bit, but not a lot, right? This is just a normal little pullback. Held up pretty well. So I liked what I saw here, and I ended up taking long, day trade dolling 15 shares at 931.61. So I got filled in right over here, which was, I was bidding at the 8 EMA because look at these candles, right? Look how much it retraces back into the prior candle. This is a stock where if you see a stock where it moves like this and there's a lot of wicks and tails, it's not really a stock I typically like to trade in terms of price action organization, but I always bid at the 8 EMA here, right? And there's such a good chance. Like look at this candle here, right? Think, oh man, nice green bars. I'm definitely gonna, I'm gonna miss this move. Gets retraced back to the 8 EMA. You get a price better than chasing it over here. So, and oftentimes after that, you'll get your immediate fall through up because it just gets that little quick kind of buyers show some engagement, and then we're off to the next leg. Same thing over here. So buy to the 8 EMA and you get that lift off. And I'm really glad I did that because instead of trying to bite it right over here at 93.40, got it all the way over here and pull back to VWAP. I got a couple of tails and ended up taking the loss here on Lily just in a couple of minutes at exactly 3 o'clock, this 255 candle. I took the small loss at 928.89. So took it somewhere over here. And there's two reasons. One, we had the tail above VWAP, so Lily was holding up pretty well. And my entry was decent. My stock D1 was good. My stock M5 was pretty good, although I think it could have been better, to be honest. And my entry was decent in terms of the stock-wise. If you look at market-wise, what's happening, right? Why the hell am I going long right now when we get this move to the new low of the day, then we get this super wimpy bounce? I should be focusing on shorting. So was totally unsynced with the market on this one, and there's just simply no reason for me to be taking this long. That's kind of the bottom line, right? We get this crack down lower, and I'm like, oh, snap. This is going to crack down lower. I got to get out of here. And luckily I did. So, my stock pick kind of saved me here as I took another tiny little loss. But this should have been a no trade. Market was way too bearish. And because I was so focused on, getting out of Lily, I was like, I should have been, boom, this red candle low of the day. I'm shorting the heck out of that thing, bro. Look at that fall through. That's a weird kind of snap here. Then you get your end of day bounce, right? And then you take your profits. There's a whole bunch of money to be made on the short side, 586, right? Got, anywhere from $4 to $7, depending on your entry over here in this trade. So nice stuff, spy wise. But yeah, I was just really on the wrong side of the market, and because I had a great stock and a great entry too. By the way, I actually had a chance to scratch out of this trade a couple of minutes later, but I'm not messing around with that the kind of price action. So Lily, that should have been a no trade. Now in 3-4, I did not take any trades this day, except my swing long on GRR. Busy season at work, so some days I watch the market, but I'm not taking a whole bunch of trades, trying to get some stuff done. But on this day, one of the things I want to point out this week in terms of the theme is that this first move, outside of this heavy selling, right? This initial move here, this is a strong move down, weak bounce, and then we get the leg lower here. We get a move down, test the downside, and when it fails, we can play the upside. When this move fails, we can play the downside. Weak move to test the downside, play the bounce up. Weak move to test the upside, play the move down. Right? Sort of kind of wimpy-ish move. This is a decent-ish move, but first move to test the downside, bounce up. So this is just classic, I think, channel trading where we're range bound, right? And when we have a weak move to one side that fails near some major support, and it starts to come in, gets above VWAP over here, you can take some longs and ride them up and start taking gains when we start seeing some bearish hammers. Bearish engulfs on heavy volume, especially as the stock starts to get really extended. Like this, I think this is a classic pattern here where it gets a little bit too extended, right off the 8 EMA, kind of parabolically pulling up, and then boom, we get the door slam. And this is right at the prior day's close. So that's an important level where, bullish specs pile in. Others are like, oh, great, 585.31, I'm going to share in the door. So that's kind of the nature of the trading this week. And you see, we actually had 2 nice days where you could trade the long side, 1 nice day for the short side, and then another nice day where you can trade the long side over here. So I think out of these 5 days, I think 2 of them you're better off in the short side, 3 of them you're better off trading the long side. Okay, so 3-5 is one of the days where we're better off trading the long side. We get here, chop, 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 chop. Wimpy move lower. I am fully expecting to take a long on this one because look at what we have over here, right? Kind of bottom out over here. We got a tallish bounce. This had some decent price action, decent volume here. Liked what I saw. And we got a big smackdown that really this was kind of a warning sign that, yeah, look, this is going to take a while for this to resolve. But if I see a higher low versus this, we start to rally at that support, I'm going to start getting long. So first one I took was Futu or Futu. I'm not really sure how you're supposed to say that. I really don't even know what this stock does. I have no idea. I just know it's a Chinese stock, and I like day trading it. Those are the two things that I know about the stock. I know nothing else about the stock. No data for this stock? What do you mean there's no data? Okay. Let me see what the stock does. Yes. Engage in the provision of digital financial services, brokerage, and wealth management products. Nice. So, could be a lot of things. I don't even know. Futu Holdings. Okay, so I guess it's in the Chinese financial sector. Anyways, well, here's a pattern trading on the stock. Look, nice strong move, pullback, found some support, a couple of horizontal levels going on over here. Main thing was that, hey, look, broke into the gap, and here's the gap fill. Okay, good stuff. So, like the price action on that, we're looking at for a day trade. Chinese stocks can do a little bit of their own thing, but they're still affected by the market. There's still some gravitational pull there, but very newsy. So I don't really like to swing them. Now, Futu over here, gap up, stack, 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 stack. First of all, I definitely do not need to chase this move. Why? Look at these retracements. All these wicks and tails as it's testing these D1 levels. Here's another little gap over here. So just all this kind of random bullshit. It's going to come back, test this level. Nice long red hammer on heavy volume. So I was waiting for that pullback on Futu. And this is while the stock market moving up, right? Futu moving up. Now I just need to see a little bit pullback in the stock, and I'm ready to go. So 11.25 is looking nice. What's the market doing at 11.25? I was looking at the wrong chart there. Here's the market 11.25. So starting to compress. And look, this is a pretty wimpy move, right? There's not that much downside left on this guy. And when I see this candle, this is exactly when I enter the stock. I day trade long 25 shares at 117.92. And this is a pretty ideal entry for me, pretty picture perfect entry. We get a nice medium-sized candle through the 8 EMA. Not a huge candle where I'm so close to the high of the day, but we're close. We're above VWAP over here. We found support above VWAP, above that pivot high. And here's this little pivot higher here. You can see how I tested that support. It was near enough to VWAP where I know that buyers probably scooped it in. And it found a nice move while the market flat, stock moving higher, pullback, right, for a little bit of market selling. And let's see when I get this pop on this guy. When does this happen? It happens at 11.45. Yeah, so look, this is the market at 11.45. And ends up being literally the lowest point of the day. So that is sometimes how you can trade the low. What I was watching for a couple things here. One was wimpy bounce. I know we're probably going to get some moves to the upside here. The second thing is that this move is really weak. So I know that it's unlikely to, we're closer to the end of the move than the beginning of the move. And when I see Futu started to move up and starting to make its move, right, that it's sort of leading the race, right? Futu didn't need the market to go up for it to go up. It started to go up before the market went up, and that's my clue that I can get another stock. So that's how I kind of like to time these cycles, where end of a weak cycle and beginning of a strong cycle. All right, I'm going to get into the stock. So I got long over here, and market had some nice follow through. This stock kind of at the high of the day, poking around here, losing its relative strength. So I know that there's some sort of resistance going on here, and I think I was sized for something to like 112, the low of the day, because I was like, look, man, market, I've not really been synced on the market. Chinese stock can be newsy. If something happens here, I want to be able to get out at the low of the day for a max loss. So I ended up holding this stock, and I think I took gains on this at 1240. So right over here. And this is what I saw in Futu and the market. And let's go to the market at 1240. So look, market rallying over here. This looks fine, looks decent. We broke through VWAP, so we're probably going to retest VWAP at some point here. This stock not rallying at all. And I was like, well, look, if we retest VWAP, do I really want to be holding this thing? Maybe. Could it break up? It could. But figured I'd just take the tiny win on this guy and move on, and that's pretty much what I did. I didn't like how it would get through the high of the day, and I figured that if it could get, I'll set an alert here for later in the day, and if it gets through that high of the day, then I can get back in. But I wanted to perform a little bit better on this market, and it didn't. And, I didn't want to be holding on to trades too long on this guy. So I missed a better exit by, a decent amount of cents, but I really thought it had a good chance to break through that high of the day, especially when it was holding the gains of these green candle. Now, if you look at the walkaway analysis, you can see it did actually end up going up here, but the way it moved up was not how I would have expected it to move up. It was relatively weak for most of this move while the market was moving up higher. We got this long red candle here after a couple of tests at the high of the day. Long red candle and then no follow through, immediately gulfed back in, but I might have actually bit on that candle and scratched out of the trade because it had not been rallying the whole time. So to me, all this price action was much harder to predict and not the best horse, especially when, if I go over here, the market was rallying pretty decently well that day. So I could find another pick. But I liked it overall in the stock. I felt this was much better synced. It was a good stock. It was a good entry. Good stock D1, good stock M5, good stock entry. So been better about those, but I've not been synced with the market. This ended up being a good market entry on over here. Ended up being good market entry over here. And nice little market follow through. So I got the market right, and stock didn't perform as well, but at least I managed to get a tiny win on that. Next one I took was MSTR, and I think Pete put this on my radar the past couple of days. So here is the setup D1 on this guy. Now, not a great D1, but first of all, really volatile mover intraday. Had filled in this gap over here, had some route to the 100-day SMA, and had broken through that A VWAP E. So MSTR was looking pretty good. Oh, that's the 6th. Sorry. Let me go back to the 5th. This was the 5th. MSTR roaring over here, finding some relative strength on the D1 through that 200-day SMA and not really falling in that last leg. So that was the D1 setup here. Here's the M5 or is the D1 setup on SPY. Let's go to this M5 chart. Yeah, okay, so I was right. This is 3-4. Strong move from the 200 SMA all the way to AVWAP. Here is it through here. So I took day trade long at 12.10. So took it right over here at 293.15. So I took it somewhere here. And I took it because we were breaking through that AVWAP E. There was actually a little bit lower on that AVWAP E, so that line has moved up a little bit here, but it was kind of right around here when that trade happened. So that's where I took the trade and performed pretty well instantly. And this was just kind of a continuation trade. If you look at what the market was doing at that time as well, at 12 o'clock, nice green candle here getting through VWAP. So we got that confirmation. And I loved how this stock, when the market was kind of rallying down here, this stock grinding, held all the gains from this knockdown from the first test of AVWAP. And it was just grinding, kind of compressing, forming some higher lows over here, right? Here's higher low, breaking through VWAP. And then we got the buy signal here that's just poking up, trying to poke above this high of the day. And we were off to the races. So there's probably a chance, honestly, where you could have bought it at 11.55, pretty close to the AVWAP, but could have bought it even kind of when it's compressing over here. There was a nice entry close to VWAP. Now it broke through here, and my target, this is crazy. My target was like 301, and it got to like 375. So missed my target by a couple of cents. Oh boy. Let's see. I believe there was, I had some resistance there. Let's see if it actually pulls up. If not, I'm going to load it up on here. Yes, that's what I had over here. This green line I had as resistance, which came into play pretty much right at about 301. So that's what I was targeting, and you can see that it pretty much hit that line. I'm going to pull up the M5 chart over here. Here's my good old green line. And it kind of warped down a little bit here, but that price was about 370 something, right? 71. So hit that line and rejected. So I was like, oh man, just missed my price target, and ended up taking a small win on this guy at 296 is where I took the win on MSTR. I also added to this trade actually very, very quickly. So got through here, and then at 12.20, I added a couple shares at 295. So got filled at 295 over here, and I had a full position on with an average price of 244.08. And then we got a pullback over here, and I was like, you know what? Like, it's made a nice little move here. I'm going to take some gains. So took some gains over here. But this one was kind of a follow and watch that Pete was doing here. He got probably about a $5 gain on this. I got a $2 gain on an ad, so I guess it was like a $4 gain, which was not bad. Yeah, I mean, this was not actually my usual setup, but I do like this pattern here, and I just prefer getting it earlier on this pattern, kind of before that move is jumped up, but I know there's relative strength, so prefer to get earlier, closer to VWAP, somewhere here, and then I can ride out the trend and take gains over here. And I had a chance to probably get out, so maybe somewhere like 298, but in all honesty, what I should have done was I wasn't at my screen, and if I saw this little hammer here, and I know we're at D1 resistance, I would have taken some gains into that hammer. So that was kind of the one mistake I had in MSTR. Now, it actually set up for another entry later. So what I should have done was set a down sloping trend line alert. And then when I got this signal candle here at 155, I'm like, hey, look, we got little higher lows to this downward sloping trend line, confirmed above the AVWAP E. Okay, I'm going to go long here and watch for the high of the day, see if we can crack through that. We're going over here. And then we get a crack through. And then a bearish engulf, no follow through. So maybe we'll have to exit out over here, but still get another trade. You probably get another anywhere from $5 to $10 on this trade. And yeah, there's another one. There's another one in there. So my only regret was actually not getting back into this trade at 155. And let's see what the market was at 155. Yeah, breaking through that high of the day, fresh buy signal. So there's a chance to get into that trade. Okay, last one I took over here was a SPY little PDS lotto. Took the 582, 581 PDS, and just basing it off this move, we got a big end of day flush out. If I look at this move on the 5th, we got a not as strong as a move up higher, and we're compressing over here, double top, marginally low. So I took it over here on this long kind of red candle, but the mistake I had was I kind of bit on this candle before it closed low. It needed to close below this little low here. That's what I was watching for, and we did not get that close. If we got that close here, I would have taken that little PDS, and I think that would have performed quite well. But because we got this tail here, hard to trust that candle, and needed to see it immediate follow through, right? This was a much longer candle, but we had a tail, but this tail was maybe like what, 15%, 20% of the body, maybe, right? This tail is like, I don't know, 40% of the body. It's a lot. That's a smaller body and bigger tail. So I need to see some pretty quick follow through, and I did not get it. So took a scratch a couple minutes later at a 35 cents, but that should have been a pretty quick and easy no trade because I didn't get that signal close. So it's a no trade. It's still technically a higher low over here, and we did not get any sort of like gap up, crackdown, follow crackdown over here, right? We didn't stack any heavy red candles on volume. Okay, 3-6 took a couple trades over here. First one was TGTX. I think Dan called that out. I like the trade, but in a couple ways, there's also some things I did not like about the trade. So TGTX, obviously very bullish stock. If I go to the D1 on SPY here, hide all those drawings. Yeah, look, market down, stock up. That's pretty normal stuff here in terms of looking for a long. Had just had earnings, and it had kind of broken through this prior high. So it was looking pretty good here through this level at around 36, call it 36.30, anywhere from $37. So a little bit of resistance there. Now, we broke through here, and then we got this big, long red candle here. And then we compressed here, and we poked above over here. So I got long on this candle. Now, in terms of an entry point, I like this pretty well as an entry point. The only thing I'm not crazy about was this kind of long red candle and the fact that this long red candle happened near the all-time high on pretty heavy volume. So I don't like that kind of smackdown. It was hard and it was fast. And if you compare that to the chart, the M5 chart of Futu, where it was more gradual. It was a more gradual move up, but it was a more organized move up and a weaker move down. You can see that big move up, kind of compress, big move up, compress, big move down, compress. So it's a bit herky-jerky. And in terms of that herky-jerky, this is a great entry point, but wasn't crazy about taking it as a day trade long here. But still thought, it was good. This smackdown from the all-time high had me on my back heels, to be perfectly honest. But kind of jumped into that trade. It was my setup entry-wise. And I took it, let's see, at 12.55. So here's at a 12.55. So that was the setup I was looking at. What I saw market-wise is we got the move down, move lower. This is a kind of a weak move to the 200-day SMA. Poke through and they kind of move back up over here. So I like that. And I wanted to see some follow-through all the way back to VWAP. Wasn't expecting anything crazy. But look, we did kind of flush out. This is a bit of a bearish channel here, so I was watching for anything sort of climaxy on this guy, but with just kind of one red candle. Now, I took it long, took about 150 shares long at 36.73, and then this stock kind of just did nothing. And if I look at this stock, this market here was in meat grinder mode, didn't give me anything to work with. So finally watching here, and then I see this loss, see this long red candle at 2, and it broke through this horizontal support that I was leaning on. Was unable to get back above VWAP, and it tested VWAP again and got rejected, forming a higher low. So took the loss here at 36.06. And my max loss was like 37.73, so it was close to my max loss, which was, again, a nice clean break of that support. I was willing to withstand. But yeah, I mean, stock market kind of down to flat. Stock was actually a little bit more bearish, considering there was some selling pressure. We got a big flush out later in the day. Ended up working out better, right, as a swing, but I was just day trading only. So improvement on this stock, I think honestly, this is not my setup for a day trade. So this should have been a no trade. Okay, next one I took over here. I took Marvel, and this was a gap fill reversal play. So again, really big drop down from earnings. Stock finds support, finds support early in the day and starts to rally. So Marvel was looking decent, rallied over here, but so did the market. So I needed to see its true colors on a drop. Right, market started to drop, stock started to drop, but it was holding up pretty well. And then I got long right over here, 50 shares at 74.71. So right over here, and I took it right before the candle closed. So we got this kind of red candle through here. So I wasn't super worried. But on this, here's what I'm expecting. Nice 3 green candles and then some steady green buying over here, especially when I got this pop right here. And you can see how on this red candle, the stock did not move. And then on the next 2 green candles, it started to move up nice and high. And actually at 12.55, yeah, moved up nice and high. So took it right over here. And then stock kind of floundered around here. Didn't really do a whole lot. Tested this level. Came back up, but then look, same thing, right? Market not doing a whole lot. And then we get this pop here at 245 to 250. And we get that pop back here. So I do have a chance to scratch out of the trade, but now it's lost its relative weakness, right? It's lost its relative strength. And in terms of a time stop on this, when I nailed this right, it usually performs fairly quickly within an hour. And you can see within an hour, did not perform at all, right? Did not perform at all. So had a chance to scratch out of this trade. And then I took the loss, I believe, at 335, which was right over here. At 72.43. So I took the loss here because it did not get the market rally, right? This market started to rally up. The stock started to move down. So late in the day, yeah, not looking to push that one, but just didn't do what I wanted to do. And I chalked this up to 2 things here. 1, meat grinder mode after a strong move, unable to get above 200 SMA. I needed to wait for something to happen here, and this just ends up being an LPTE slog. The second thing was that I was fine with the setup. I bit a little bit too early on the entry, so the stock entry could have been better, and the trade management, I should have realized, all right, look, we didn't get the move that I wanted to. And it's so hard with these meat grinders because you're like, all right, it's just not, it's weak enough where it's not strong enough, a strong enough move down where I'm worried about the rug falling out. But I'm also not worried. I'm also not getting the lift off I needed to see on this guy to really, really take off. So just kind of in this holding wait and see pattern. So I think 2 things how I would have improved this trade. The first one here is just wait for this candle to finish. And if I see this candle to finish, I'm probably waiting a little bit earlier, and maybe I'm taking it somewhere here, right? Maybe I'm taking it like $74. And now when I'm not getting the price action I need to see here, I can scratch out of the trade later in the day. So that's I think how I would improve that trade. Stock wise, market wise, it's like, maybe you're trying to get it in here, right? We try to close above that high. So I don't mind getting something like at 115. Trying along there, right? And here's the stock at 115, so I don't mind trying along here, especially when we're right at VWAP. Got a little test. We're getting a bit of a higher low here, so yeah, don't mind that. I think entry could have been a little bit better. Okay, next one I took. So I took a couple of longs here at this kind of bearish meat grinder move. So I took Baidu long. Let's start with the D1 on Baidu. And this was Baidu on March 6th, so it's getting into that gap. So it looked pretty good, but you can see pretty gappy stock, and there is some resistance here. But there's also, I was looking at this gap, right? This gap on Baidu, but I missed this gap on Baidu and this gap on Baidu. So Baidu had like a whole bunch of gaps over here that was just providing support and resistance for the stock. So I missed a whole bunch of that. And that's kind of the first caveat where I'm like, all right, this should have been a no trade. Compare that to the gap on Futu, and that's like not, kind of night and day. Futu had a pretty defined gap, and I will decide which one I want to say. I really have no idea what I want to say on that stock Futu, but I guess it's a T sound, not a chew sound. But anyways, So here's the setup I saw on Baidu. Mixed candles. We had some decent volume over here. This is on the 6th. Poke down here. We're kind of grinding up higher. And I take the trade, day trade long, 90 shares at 92.69. So I take the trade right here, which is a really nice entry because I look, this is a choppy mess, right? I do not want to get it. I don't want to go long the stock when it's so far away from VWAP because it's gonna test it. It's gonna test it. Just there's not enough organization here. But figured that. Look, here's the market. What is it? 105. So let's go back in time here. Here's the setup I see at 105. And here is the market at 105. So it's looking pretty good. And made a pretty nice move yesterday, right? Gap up, held the gains, grinded up higher, came down here, tested this level, but I'm like, hey, look, we have a pretty decent shot to get back up over here at least. So that was kind of my plan. Now we actually get really nice immediate follow through, and then it comes back and falls hard through this level here. And market still in meat grinder mode, right? Does actually end up rallying later in the day and confirming through that gap on the next day. But didn't like what I saw in this breakdown through VWAP, some long red candles, and then I ended up taking the loss on Baidu at 91.77, which was the one at 110. Where was 110? Or sorry, 230. My bad. On this candle. Yep, that's when I took it. And as you can see, it ended up being pretty much the worst place to take the loss. So why did I take the loss here? That's kind of the question. Well, I was like, oh man, this is a really big move, right? Really big move red. But we know that this stock is jerking and makes big moves. The second thing was I was actually sized for a move through the low of the day. My stop was 91. My stop was somewhere over here, which was not even just a test low of the day, but a break through the low of the day. So I was sized for this move. But I just didn't follow my plan and had a chance to take profits at the end of the day. Holding through some of that bounce over here at 250 and didn't get it. So that was just bad trade management on my part. I laid out the plan. I had everything ready. I did do what I wanted to do, but had to give it a chance at least to scratch out of the trade over here because it didn't even come close to my stop and didn't trigger that stop. So that's just bad trade management on my part. That's kind of the second thing. The upstream issue was just to probably not take the trade given, one, the price action, very choppy. Two, the market was a little bit too bearish that day, couldn't get off the deck. And three, terrible trade management. So a lot of kind of different issues here, but I think the number one upstream issue for me was against the market and D1 stuff on the stock. So should have been a no trade. And I am just updating the log on that trade. Okay. Last one on 3.6 is BJ. Sorry about that. So here is BJ on the D1. Massive stock, very strong. Big move post earnings. Broke through a whole bunch of high plus trend lines coming up over here. I think OSP may have shifted some of these, but anyways. So here's the price action on BJ. First thing you notice on this stock, way cleaner price action than the other stocks that I went long on. So in terms of the D1, in terms of the M5, in terms of the volume organization here, much better candidate stock-wise. Now, market-wise, still not getting anything crazy, but I went long BJ at 205, And what did I do? I took 40 shares at 112.08. Figured we had some room to the high of the day at 113.65. And my stop was somewhere like 109, which was around this low of this pivot candle. Immediate confirmation. Here's the market at 205. So look, we're stalling out here. We're still flat, but this stock has pulled back. Strong stock near VWAP. And my entry, I really like the entry on the stock, where it was a nice bullish candle engulf from VWAP above the 8 EMA closing up to the high. And this pivot above this prior pivot. So I like this entry, really nailed it. We got this dip over here, try to make a new high, and here's the move at 245, and then we get this tail and this rejection here. Starts to give back some of the gains and end up scratching out of the trade on this 320 candle over here when I don't get the lift off over here. So that was it. I don't mind. I think I got a lot of things right with this trade. In terms of taking a chance of going long. I gave the market a little bit more time, but market I think was still a little bit too bearish. Stock-wise, not bad. Stock-wise I think was actually very good, but you had to kind of get in and get out. I was really counting on the market to have a little bit more tailwind, and I just didn't quite get it. So this was, I guess you had to be nimble here or here. You had two very small entry points. This is kind of your window to take profits, and then didn't manifest. So yeah, I mean, I'm not too mad about that one. I think it was a little bit more better synced with the market than the prior trades, and I got a much better entry point, much better pick overall. But again, just to get the lift off that I needed to see. All right, last day on SPY. Friday. So coming into Friday, I was like, look, we poke below here, and I'm watching very specifically for two things. One, if we get a big gap down and we start to fill in that gap aggressively, I can start to get long. Second thing, we get a wimpy move to the gap in the first half of the day, and then we start to rally aggressively. Okay, I can also get long. So I was actually making a PowerPoint of, and I think I still have it. Let's see if I can find it. I was making a PowerPoint on just all of the different SPY bullish trends that are either engulfs or hammers. So those kind of big reversal days, those patterns that happen on the D1 where we get a ton of buying here. And I was looking and watching the price action on those. So it really helped me set up some of the trades later in the day. So first trade for this day was I took SPY long 15 shares here, added to the trade another 15 shares here, and then ended up scratching out of the trade over here. So this was kind of a weird trade, but I'll explain why it was weird. So I really like this entry here because I got the stack green candles, I got the red candle here, and I got this bullish engulf back here. I don't love this long red candle, but it's a solo. This is a test of the 200 and the AVWAP, or the VWAP of that day. So don't mind getting long here on the notion that we need to see continued follow through, right? That's what I need to see. So we get this kind of wimpy move here. I think I bite going. I don't think I should have added, but I added over here, and then over here I panicked. I was like, double top. That's the first thing I thought of, and then I got out of the trade. So not the best move. It ended up being a low volume, low quality rally higher. And I had time. You can see we got the snap lower, and then this move up higher. So I had a chance to exit at a double top over here. And I think that's what I should have done. I think there should have been single size position over here, exit at the double top over here, and you could have taken, I don't know, call it $4 on SPY. That's, I think, how I should have played out on this trade. But the immediate scratch out I wasn't a fan of. You know, Pete was also kind of in the trade. I actually entered separately of him, and I saw it afterwards that he entered at that time, so we were kind of synced up in our entries. But this move was kind of weak and kind of janky over here. And this move especially was concerning because You get these 2 stack reds. This does not happen on a bullish reversal day. You do not get any reds below the 8 EMA. You either see a compression, or you see, a single red and then move up higher, single red, move up higher, and a very steady 45-degree angle. When you see something like this, yeah, that day is not happening anymore. That's SPY, but overall, I like the entry. I like the sizing. I think I was still too skittish, right? I was really, I even sized the first size where I could take a move down to the low of the day. And the second size, I should have been able to take a move down to VWAP. But yeah, it is what it is. And I will learn from that. Next one, I took a couple things of that day, but I'm going to go to the next SPY trade I took that day, which was, I took the 577 lotto call here at 160 on this little hammer here. I added to the trade a second lotto call at 153, so my average was about 157-ish, and I'm watching for that move just into the gap, because so far, right, it's picked up some steam, picked up some wine, looking decent, and then we don't get the follow through, we get this poke lower, and now I'm thinking, all right, I got to get out of these lotto options. And I think I exit over here at the low for 60 cents. So I took about a 60% loss on those lottos on a full size. And I'd had a chance to maybe take like maybe like a 30% loss or something like that, a 35% loss on those lottos. So a couple things on those lottos. First, I did bid for the entry, but the better entry coming in right over here. Second thing was my vehicle of choice. Those lottos had to move very, very quickly, otherwise it could have been wrong. So I was better off taking the 1 DTE trades versus the 0 DTE lottos. That way I wasn't as vulnerable to the time premium decay, and I would have been just completely nerfed by the sideways movement on SPY. And the second thing is that I shouldn't have added on this candle. I don't mind the add on this candle. I think it was fine. I'd say the vehicle of choice and the entry was a little bit more suspect, in my opinion. So that was some of the problems in the trade. And had both of those changed, I think I could have gotten out for like a 10% loss or like a 20% loss versus a 60% loss on that position. Okay. Last 2 trades. Next one I took was Apple. And Apple was a nice little strong long over here where the market's going down. I think it may have fooled me because Apple is acting like a flight to safety stock. But like the strength here, it has holding some trend lines, holding with the 200 SMA, breaking above its 50 SMA, so it's looking pretty good. Obviously, it went down today, as most stocks did. But went long Apple here at 240.91, or sorry, 240.94 at 105. So took it right here and exited towards the end of the day somewhere over here at 239.30. So took about $1 loss on this Apple stock. And I took it over here because, look, at this point I was like, hey, we have a chance for this reversal pattern to play out. And Apple's been holding on pretty well. So I'm going to hold Apple, and we are going to take it as an overnight swing long, maybe for a couple of days even, if we get the bounce that we're looking for. But doesn't happen. Now, Apple doesn't bounce immediately. It has relative strength, but only because it's been a flight to safety stock. As soon as the market starts to rally, we see some profit taking. Volume, cash is flowing out. There's selling happening in Apple. So ended up being kind of a diversion ticker. That's my first mistake. And you can see in the relative weakness when I took the trade, right? Some stocks are relatively weak, but that's what I saw. Second thing is that this is a choppy stock, right? Goes back and forth, not really doing a whole lot. I have a way better entry at the 8 EMA. I chased up here, right? That 8 EMA entry saves me 70 cents. 70 cents on that entry, right? So second thing on this really choppy stock. So bad entry and potentially not the best pick. It's good, decent, but it's been acting divergence, so it's kind of a tricky pick. But in terms of the plan, I think the plan was well executed. I didn't see the price action I wanted. I closed my longs at the end of the day because I didn't see that reversal pattern, and I didn't want to hold any swing longs, especially because the market was unable to get above the 200 SMA this entire week. It was at this level for the 4 days, could not bounce off it, right? It didn't jump off like that, cattle prodded by a hot iron. I think that's what Pete says, but it should really jump out of your chair long. And so far, it's not jumping out of the chair. It is glued to that chair, which is the 200-day SMA. So that was Apple. It originally intended to be a swing, and then ended up being a day trade as I took a small loss in that position. Last stock I chose was IBM. So IBM was pretty interesting because it's actually one of the strongest tech stocks out there. And I chose it specifically because it was a tech stock, and that I knew that any buying here was probably not that much of a flight to safety move. So that was my thinking on IBM. So we got this gap down here, poking to the gap, and this is the earnings gap that had held up really, really well. So initially, when the market's rallying early in the day, we get this nice move on pretty decent price action. There's some overlap in here, but we know it's going to pull back. But so far, it's been holding the vast majority of the gains. And we get this beautiful L-shaped pattern that I like. Over here, right, bit of an L, just holds those gains. So I think this works. This is kind of where I call it IBM. I'm like, hey, look, IBM's looking pretty good. At 11.55. And here's a market at 11.55. And then we get this pop up here. And this is probably the first pretty decent entry on IBM, because at least we get some movement here up on SPY at 12. And this is not a bad place to go long. But it's a little bit anticipatory of the market, right? Market's still selling off, but you got to be careful. Over here, you don't want this to be a door slam, but ends up being a decent entry point stock-wise, not the best entry point market-wise. Okay, so we get a nice move here. Test at A VWAP E, and if you're in the trade, that's maybe not a bad place to take some profits, but we get a move down lower, and then we get a breakthrough here. And so this is when I take the trade on IBM. And at this point, at 115, I'm intending to swing the trade. So I take the 314 CDS. I take the 257, 265 CDS on IBM. Because if you look at how the chart is structured, 275 is pretty much right at the money, right above the AVWAP. And 265 is pretty much at that high. So I figured, hey, look, we have a pretty good chance to get to that high. So I took it for 280. So pretty much a 1x size on this. And had some immediate follow through, going up over here, compressed, poked a little bit lower. And I was waiting till the end of the day to see if we get any sort of nice little end of day buying move or buying climax. And we didn't really get much. So at the end of the day, we got this dip lower, and then we've got this nice leg higher, and I exited the trade at 403. So take about a 45% profit in the CDS, which was really nice. Ended up working out really well, and actually had some follow through the next day. So probably, if you had an order out, you probably could have gotten that 60, 70% move win on that PDS or the CDS. But didn't know what the market was going to do the next day, right? Didn't feel confident taking that overnight. So figured I'd just take the gains and, move on to the next one. So those were all the trades I took this week. Separate video coming out, but overall, I think there was a handful of really good picks that were synced up with the market. There was a lot of okay picks that were either not synced up or not, the entry wasn't great, and so on and so on. And there was a couple of trades that really just should have been no trades. So that's a takeaway for me this week. And try to sync it up better. Try to be smarter about it. Just be a little more patient. Everything I already kind of know. And just get everything quite calibrated. There's just too many trades where, for me, it was just when I was looking back, I'm like, okay, this entry was off, this pick was a little bit better, you missed this on the D1, the market was a little too bearish. Just too many, I felt like, unforced errors that I am better. I'm a better trader than that. So that was the takeaway this week. And I'm going to try to improve on that this week over here for March 10th. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, everyone. And I'll see you all in the next weekly trade review.